Joe Rosales. Baby, you don't know what you do to me. Between me and you, I feel a chemistry. I won't let no one come and take your place. Cause the love you give, it can't be replaced. See, no one else, let me let you do. That's why I don't mind to spend my life with you. I wanna please you in any way I can. I wanna share my world, but don't you understand? Your love is a one in a million. It goes on and on and on. You give me a good feeling all day long. Your love is a one in a million. It goes on and on and on. You give me a really good feeling all day long.
I would never find another lover sweeter than you, sweeter than you. And I would never find another lover more precious than you, more precious than you. The girl you are. Close to me, you like my mother. Close to me, you like my father. Close to me, you like my sister. Close to me, you like my brother. You are the only one, you're my everything. And for you, the song I sing. All my life, I pray for someone like you. And I thank God that I finally found you. All my life, I pray for someone like you. And I hope that you feel the same way too. Yes, I pray that you do love me too. I said you're all that I'm thinking of, baby. Said I promised to never fall in love with a stranger. You're all I'm thinking of. I praise the Lord above for sending me love. I cherish every hug. I really love you so much. Baby, baby, I pray for someone like you. And I thank God that I finally found you. All my life, I pray for someone like you. And I hope that you feel the same way too. Oh, yeah. All right. It's amazing how you knock me off my feet. Every time you come around me, I get weak. Oh, yeah. Nobody ever made me feel this way. Oh, you kiss my lips and then you take my breath away. So I wanna know what turns you on. Yeah, I like to know so I can be all that and more. I like to know. What makes you cry. So I can be the one who always make you smile. Girl, he never understood what you were worth. No. And he never took the time to make it work. Deserve more love than no. Girl, baby, I'm the kind of man who shows concern. Yes, I do. Any way that I can please you, let me learn. So I wanna know what turns you on. I wanna know so I can be all and more. I like to know what makes you cry. So I day, I would play it cool, but I can't now, cause I want you. See, I'm hooked on how you text your style, and I wanna talk for a little while. I never really seen your type, but I must admit that I kinda like. So maybe if you have the time, we can talk about you being mine. Would you be my sweet love for? I'll be there. Just call and receive me. Would you be my sweet love for a lifetime? Oh, when you need me, just call me, baby. Now on the regular, I won't waste time, but I don't want to, cause you're so damn fine. And I heard that you were taken, that don't have to stop you from making late night phone calls on the telephone, bunch of fantasies, now to get it on. When you need me, I will be there for you, my sweet lady. Would you be my sweet love for a lifetime? I'll be there when you need me. Just call and receive me, my sweet lady. Would you be my sweet love for a lifetime? I'll be there, baby. Just call me my sweet lady.
Can y'all really feel me? Feel us. East Coast feel me. Feel us. West Coast feel me. Say what? Dirty South. Here we go. Can y'all really feel me? Baby girl. East Coast feel me. West Coast feel me. Can you feel us? Dirty South. Dirty. Can y'all really feel me?
Okay. I'm going to say that one. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Sister to Sister. What are we talking about today?
I think, how about let's jump right into the difference between private adoption and state adoption here in Texas.
Okay, and we'll do that. And I'm your host, Carlonda,
And I'm Nikki.
and we are excited to kick off a three-part series about state adoptions versus private adoptions and our personal stories with adoption placements.
All right. I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited to just inform our listeners about it because when we're out in the community, you know, that's something that, like we said before, like we don't talk about. We don't talk about adoption. We really don't talk about the abuse that goes on. That's very close to us, and a lot of people they don't know like if that's even a thing. It's there's wait, you're saying that there's private and state adoption
There is a
because
difference.
there is.
Right.
On the movies, you see families looking through a book or a profile and be like, oh my God, I want this family. That's not always the case.
No, it's not
So-
always the case. And we're going to share our personal stories, which are the exception to the rule, which is when adoption fails. But before we get into our personal stories, we want to inform the public that there really is, like you said, a difference between state adoption and state adoption and private adoption. And then we'll also get into another type of common placement with CPS, which is a kinship placement. So first, let's talk about what a state adoption is. So it is exactly how it sounds. It is an adoption that is facilitated through the state. And also, full disclosure, we are a Texas native. So as we're talking about this topic, this is going to be in more relation to the state of Texas. So a state adoption is going to be more facilitated through the state. So that'll be CPS, family courts, etc. And in this process, birth parents have zero input in the adoption process because by this point, the biological parents have lost their rights. Their rights have been terminated to their child, and so now the child is legally is eligible to be legally adopted by someone else. In the state process, the state chooses the family. Okay, so the birth parents have no input, and neither does the child. The state chooses the adoptive family. And the process usually requires a completion of a home study for potential adoptive families. And children of all ages can be adopted. So, anywhere from an infant to a teenager, all of these children in those age ranges are eligible to be adopted. However, older children are less likely to be adopted.
Wow. Oh wow. So why do let me interject something. Why do you think that is? Like why are the older kids, are we talking like from 10 on up, or we're talking 13 on up because they're in that teenage years, they're rebellious, their hormones are going wacko. Like why do you think, in your opinion, that it's harder for older kids to be adopted versus
Well, I'm glad you asked that
younger?
question because I was in that bracket of an older child that was eligible to be adopted.
Okay.
And typically, just based on my experience going through the system, an infant is more eligible to, or is more likely to be adopted because that adoptive family or that parent, they can raise that child the way they want. So there
Okay.
is no background trauma
Sure.
or anything that comes along with the older child.
Okay.
And an older child can be anywhere from 6 or 7 on up.
Oh,
That would
wow.
still be considered an older
Oh
child.
my gosh.
So yes, it's the babies are typically usually the first to be adopted because again, and then the parents have the option to change the baby's name. I mean, they can really raise that
Okay.
baby from infancy
Okay.
versus
Okay.
starting at the age of 10 or 12 or 15.
Oh wow. And then when you talk about the termination of the parental rights, how long does that, I mean, so is it like as soon as a child comes into care, you know, is the state like, okay, we're terminating your rights? Or does the state try to work with the family to try to get them to, you know, not give up their rights for their child? I mean, like, how does, like, what's the timeline on that approximately? Like, do you know, like, does it varies from case to case?
It varies.
Okay.
All parents are, when their child is taken into CPS custody, they are given a window of opportunity to try to get their child back.
Okay.
They're given what's called a service plan, and they are basically, that's a sheet of paper that outlines you need to do X, Y, Z.
Okay.
Whether it be go to parenting classes or go to rehab or whatever the case may be, that you need to get your child back. And the state normally determines that time frame.
Okay.
However, the state does not give the parent resources to complete the service plan, if that makes sense.
Oh.
Right. So it is up to them. So it's like, for example, if transportation is an obstacle for this bio parent to get to parenting classes, well, the state is not, CPS is not going to provide transportation. It is up to that parent to get that transportation and get to where they need to go.
Okay.
So that's another factor.
Oh,
with
wow.
service
I mean,
plans.
that can be a huge obstacle.
Absolutely, lots
I
of
mean,
obstacles.
especially like if you're not in an area that provides public transportation, or if you're not familiar with the public transportation system. I mean, that's kind of, and you know, how do you expect a family to get on their feet or to do better if you're not providing them with the necessary resources to do so?
Right. And that is just another challenge as to why parents typically end up getting their rights terminated.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are really good questions. I'm glad we had a chance to kind of break into that a little bit. Yes. Now, it is possible for a child to be adopted by their current foster family. That does happen. Like I said, most post-placement homes or studies are conducted. So the child may be sent to live with that foster family or potential adoptive family for a period of time. And then during that period of time, before the adoption is legalized, there's still being home studies conducted. And basically, they're just checking in with the family, making sure everything is going okay, making sure the child is adjusting to the new placement okay. and so forth. Usually an adoption is finalized or legalized after about 6 to 18 months after placement.
Wow. And in between those 6 to 18 months, they're gathering data. They're asking the foster family, how's everything going? Are they also asking, like, if the child goes to school, like, are they contacting the school to seeing how the child is, performing in school? Is the child attending school? Like, so when they're conducting in between that 6 to 18 months, who all are they? Are they asking everyone? Are they following up with everyone that child comes in contact with? Or is it just the adoptive parent? So, like, whatever the adoptive parent says is...
It's going to be mostly just the adoptive parent. So, of course, they're still checking to make sure that the kid is going to school, all the things that should be in place for a child to adjust well with their new adoptive placement before everything is legalized. And then if everything checks out and everything seems to be going well, then the adoption is legalized.
Oh, wow.
Now, the state does have different methods to find adoptive families. One method is they would typically the state standard, at least here in Texas, is family reunification. So this CPS may go through a process of screening relatives of the child and seeing if there can be a potential adoption with a relative. Another option is to promote the child on a news segment called Wednesday's Child, and that's something that takes place in Texas. However, there are some questions if this method is exploitive. Does it exploit the child? So there has been some talk of some controversy on are we really exploiting this vulnerable child by putting them on the news and doing a whole news segment and kind of exposing that on television. But that is a method that is used as well to help try to find a family for the child. And then also, obviously, like I said earlier, a current foster family can also be a potential adoptive family. So CPS would explore a current foster family as well.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a rundown on state adoption. So let's take a look at what a private adoption looks like and see if we can see some similarities there. So with a private adoption, that's usually going to be facilitated through an adoption agency, hence the privacy. The birth parents are usually allowed to participate in this process, and they may do that via selecting a family, choosing if they want to have a closed or an open adoption. Birth parents, the birth parent will legally place the child up for adoption with the new family after the child is born. And this also, the private adoption also requires home studies as well. So they will need potential parents will need to complete a home study for as well. These adoptions are going to be mostly geared towards newborn infants. So the typical scenario may be you have a young single mom who wants to give her child up for adoption. And that's going to be your typical scenario here versus with the state adoption, which is going to be mostly children of all ages in state custody. Birth parents do have 48 hours to legally consent to the adoption. So there is a little window of time there. They don't have to place the child right away as soon as the baby is born. Now, birth parents can change their mind up to 10 days after legally consenting to the adoption.
Okay, so it'll act like it never happened, basically, like if they're within that 10-day window.
To a certain degree, yes. And that is a risk that potential adoptive parents take, that the birth parent can change their mind. And of course, the caveat with the state adoption, there is no window for the birth parents to change their mind because by the time their child is able to be adopted, their rights have been terminated anyway. So that's a difference there. And usually the adoption is finalized about 6 months after placement. And like state adoptions, post-placement home studies are conducted. So the adoption agency will still check in with the family for the next few months, make sure everybody's adjusting okay, making sure the baby's doing okay, and everything's going well until the adoption's finalized. And typically, the methods used to find adoptive families in the private sector are going to be potential adoptive parents will look for an adoption agency themselves, and then a profile of potential adoptive parents are created for birth parents to view. So that's where you have that scenario where the birth parent can view different profiles and selects the family that they choose for their baby.
Okay. And uh, for both state and private, background checks are completed. So, like for private, so background checks are completed before they can even get a page in the book
Right.
to look through. And then for the state adoption, like when we're talking like the CPS and rights termination and things of that sort, any potential foster home or adoptive parent will have to have a background check as well.
Right. And then considering like when we have the option for a current foster family, of course, they've already gone through the foster family has already gone through their screening process, background checks to become a foster parent. So they've kind of already gone through that.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, okay.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on one more placement that is commonplace in the CPS realm, and that is a kinship placement. So, a kinship placement is when CPS will try to, they will, when they remove the child from the biological parents, the birth parents, and then they place the child with a relative. And CPS will still often complete a home assessment to ensure that the environment is appropriate for the child. And it is possible for the guardian or the relative to receive financial assistance if the child is in legal custody of the state or CPS. So that's another option that can also lead to adoption as well, another possible adoption as well. And I also want to kind of just touch a little bit on the success rates for state adoption versus private adoption. So the success rates are typically, for the most part, overall high. For a private adoption, only about 1 out of 3 birth mothers will change their minds after they selected an adoptive family and given birth to the child. So there is about a 2 out of 3 chance that the adoption will be successful and go through. In the state of Texas, for state adoption, only 1 to 10% of adoptions are disrupted or fail after they've been finalized. And then about 10 to 25 adoptions are disrupted before they're finalized. So the numbers are still there, pretty low overall if you think about it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was very informative. And just speaking on the kinship, I was in that situation with the kinship. And, even though we briefly touched on this on our last week's episode, just about how we came into care together, but we both had different outcomes. And so my situation was the kinship. We were placed with this same relative, and you were able to leave and go to explore different placements. However, I didn't have that option for whatever reason, and so I was placed with this relative. And when we talk about home studies and this and that, I don't remember anything like that, which is why maybe I feel like my kinship wasn't successful. I mean, like, even though I was raised in that home, this individual raised me as her own, and I stayed in that home for a while. To me, it wasn't successful, just because of the abuse that I endured under that roof with that individual. And I didn't have a person to reach out to. And I don't know if that's because they semi-closed my case because I was the youngest and they thought everything was fine. I don't know. Those are that's a topic, or that's a conversation for maybe another episode.
Yes.
But you know, just going through that kinship process, and just feeling hopeless, feeling like I was alone, feeling like no one was on my side, feeling like I said I didn't have anyone to reach out to, the abuse that I suffered, physical, mentally, emotionally, you know, and just being so young and innocent and not really knowing how to, you know, at that age as a child, like, you're trying to regulate your emotions, you're trying to understand, you know, what's all going around you. But being so young, and that's really the only home that I knew, I didn't know any better.
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, this is how it has to be. But the older that I got, I'm like, this ain't
Right.
this
right.
isn't how it
Right.
is supposed to be.
Right.
You know, so even with the kinship, I just feel like if there could be more monitoring, you know, more involvement, coming into the home, checking, you know, even when I asked earlier about the support system around the child, talk to the school counselors, talk to the teachers. How was I performing in school? Could that have been a red flag? Was I wearing the same clothes? Was I coming to school, you know, with the odor? You know, all of those, but you wouldn't know unless you ask, because as a child, I'm not going to go to school and say, you know, especially the family member that raised me, is like, I knew better not to go to school and say anything.
Right.
Because I knew it was going to come back to her. And then that would just be a blow up in itself.
And like you said, I had an opportunity to leave that kinship placement, but the difference was, like you said, there wasn't really any monitoring or assessing going on while you were there, but there was some when I was there. So that's going to be very interesting when we get into both of our stories with experience with adoption and kinship. Why did I receive some sort of checking in, and how come you did not, even though we were under the same roof and living in the same placement for a period of time? So I'm excited to get more into your story with that. And we're going to segue into that for our next episode. But if you want more information about private adoption or state adoption, you can check out a couple of websites in the link below, www.adoptivefamilies.com. And then you can also check out dfps.texas.gov. So this has been another episode of Let's Talk Sister to Sister. We will see you next time for more conversation.
Yes, thanks guys for joining. See you later.
Bye.
I've been watching you like the hawk in the sky. That fly when you are my prey. Boy, I promise you, if we keep bumping heads, I know